Futures and forex trading contains substantial risk and is not suitable for all investors. Past performance is not necessarily indicative of future results. Please take a moment to review the full disclaimer. Hello traders, Kevin from chartspots.com. In today's video I want to have a look at the developing profile for the DAX and basically have a look what are the important areas to watch out for, which are expected support and resistance, where I think the auction is going. So with that said, let's move on to the charts. Looking at the weekly chart for the DAX, so let's start by zooming out quite a bit. That's what I typically do at the start of the week, as it is today. So on this chart we're looking at the past 2 years of data. It's quite clear where the auction is going up. Looking to the more recent period, so I drew a custom profile around the period starting in September till now. So we had a very strong bullish action going on, and now we are starting to range near this all-time high we have set. This is quite typical behavior if you look to the past few years. So you reach two new highs, you consolidate, find support and move on towards the next zone. This was especially choppy the second half of 2016, I'm sorry. And the second half for 17 was quite upwards. So we're now into this balancing zone. So the key areas, looking at the weekly chart for this week, is this low of the prior week. So we haven't breached it yet. I think this will be an important level. If we do breach that, looking at this information, I am expecting to test this POC somewhere in the future. Might be this week, of course, considering it's only a couple 100 points away. The first week was of course very strong, as you will have noticed if you were watching. However, the volume in the first week of the year was not that spectacular. It was about average. The selling that ensued had a bit more volume, but that week also had some upside left, so not much to read about or into this. It does make me believe that this is more profit taking going on currently than anything than new money entering the scene. So on the weekly chart, this obvious support zone is 12,832, which is the LVN separating these nodes. If we do breach this level and hold volume below it, I do expect to test further down. In that case, I would be looking to extend the profile a bit, and then you have the first clear target is this point of control at about a little below 12,600, and then potentially the lower volume nodes below it. So the first immediate one is around this level. Okay, so with that said, let's move on to the daily. So here is September, and you see this big rally we had till November, the start of November, without any pullbacks, so it was to be expected. We pulled back towards this high volume distribution, this balance area, and we're setting a range now, as we've seen on the weekly as well. If you look at the volume since this drop, we have a nice taper here, nice value area which we tried breaking out starting the beginning of the year. So we still rejected these higher prices above the value area, but we did see some participation up here, which is a good sign. The way up indeed had less volume than, or at least the average of the days is a bit lower than the selling days, but there is no big selling bar like you had over here. So it's still quite contained. Looking at this, if we start breaching these lows, I can see this continue and at least test this POC from this range, and one from the a bit longer time frame is just below, is this one basically. So I do expect to find some buying pressures or some buyers down here, and at the very least I also expect the value area low of this longer time frame to hold and pull prices back up. Should we consistently break, which means accept volume below this 12,830 level, which I mentioned before, then my primary expectation would be to at least test this next POC and potentially this complete block of high volume below there. That doesn't mean that it's very bearish, but still on the time frame I'm playing intraday, that's of lesser importance. So looking at the 5-minute chart now, same thing becomes clear. So after we reached the highs up here, we basically left behind triple distribution, although it's very thin down here, so that's also why I mentioned this as an important level. If we start to break it, you might travel through it quite quickly. On this chart I'm also keeping track of the mid of this move, which might provide some support. It's also close to the value area low of this range. So those are my basic points. So to see continuation to the downside, I expect to break this prior week's low and see continuation to the mid to this POC perhaps, which on the this composite of this amount of days is more a low volume node, so we could find support there. On the upside, I'm mainly looking for a break above this 50% line, which is also kind of a high volume nodes in this distribution. If we start to see buyers up here, then it means we move into initiative territory. If we then start to break these lower volume nodes above, then it's likely that we see a continuation upwards. So the primary range I'm looking at this week for continuation to either side is contained in this box. So that's what I'm looking at. I also make a trade plan each morning, or rather I make 3 of them. I'll quickly give you what I made this morning. I'm actually considering starting to put this up on Twitter, but not I have to plan it into my day to make that happen with some value to it. So my primary expectation this morning, looking at the pre-market or the first hour of trading, which still has the cash market closed, was to see some continuation down. I was expecting support to come in at this low volume node right here. Now as the day developed, we had quite a strong down push, and we retraced to the mid and saw continuation, so that's quite a good setup that was presented here. But that didn't invalidate this scenario. Now what this trade plan fails to properly encompass is the fact that we are on Martin Luther King Day, and even though that's not something significant in Europe, it does imply less participation today, which is quite clear if you look at the volume today. It's a lot less than prior weeks and day. So since we reached this low, we basically retrace to the mid again and now are going sideways on very low volume. Since the US market is not open today, or at least the futures are till 12 p.m. US time, I actually don't expect this move to still happen. Looking at how the day has progressed so far, I'm basically expecting more chop throughout the day, and moves being contained into this value area, more or less. The other plans I had for today was an upward break. That obviously didn't happen. We immediately broke what I was expecting to be support, so never looked at that one. This one had some probability, as we had I was expecting a strong move down, which is indeed what we got, but then selling pressure never increased sufficiently to really go down and test this LVN. Looking in retrospect, my plans were a bit too ambitious for today, considering the lighter volume that is expected. But still, I think this one is most close to what we'll get. I don't expect too much downside for the remainder of the day. And with that said, I'm closing this video. If you like to learn more about initial balance statistics, have a look at my website, chartspots.com. I also offer this initial balance indicator, which also draws the mid, which as you can see provides a lot of opportunities throughout the day. It's an important level to have a look or to keep track of properly, and there is definitely some edges to be had there. So thanks for watching. If you like this, leave a comment below. I'm currently thinking to make this a weekly thing, and first of all being focused on the DAX, potentially some Euro Stocks 50, but let's see about that later on, as demand for that is there. Thanks a lot, have a great trading week, goodbye.